Hey, welcome back everyone. And today we are talking about the FRM Part 1 most important topics. Now, again, this is not a shortcut, but something that something that will help you to prioritize the topics for the exam. And this is based on my own personal opinion. So, having said that, let's go ahead and let's talk about the foundations of risk management. For foundations, I do not have the entire specific topics that I'll help you with, or you should be targeting. But again, here entire focus is that that we have 11 chapters in foundations, something that is very less in number. And what you get is you get 20 questions. So when you have your FRM Part 1 exam, this is really important that you focus on the entire foundations of risk management. Spend some time, allocate some time. Do not neglect foundations of risk management. Okay, this is very crucial. But again, in the foundations itself, the maximum weightage or some chapters that have the highest number of to come up is definitely the modern portfolio theory, the arbitrage pricing, and principles for effective data aggregation. If you combine this thing cumulatively, you will see approximately 6 to 8 questions on the exam just from these three chapters. So this is your entire chapters are important. But again, as I said, foundations 20 questions, most people ignore it. But again, I tell you, this is the most scoring and something that can actually boost your overall performance in the FRM exam. So major focus needs to be given here as well. Moving on to book number 2, and that is the quantitative analysis. Here again we have 20 questions. Now what I've done here is that I'll first provide you the chapter wise overview of what what are the main chapters that could be important for the exam, and then some must know concepts that you should know for the exam. You cannot afford to skip. So if I talk about fundamentals of probability, you can expect to have 3 questions on the exam. You need to know what is conditional probability, the Bayes theorem, the union of events, joint probability, so on and so forth. Probability, it can also be combined with this third chapter. Specifically, if I talk about the binomial and the Poisson distribution. So this is something, these two topics or these two are something that can be combined with the first chapter. So if you see on the exam a lot of probability questions, it's no surprise that it has been combined with other chapter. Similarly, it can be combined with chapter number 4 as well, right? The probability question. But again, these two chapters are very crucial for quants. Similarly, hypothesis and regression, that is the highest weightage in the entire quants. And you can expect to have 5 to 6 questions just from these things. Again, the FRM exam is taken on multiple windows in multiple slots, right? So you may see less, you may see more. But if I have to divide the entire quants, it is nothing but the probability, the hypothesis, regression, time series, and machine learning. This is the major or a broad overview about quant. So if you're good with these chapters, you've almost covered almost like 16 to 17 questions just from these chapters. Okay, so your major focus should be on having special attention to these kind of chapters. All right, moving on to the must know concepts. Here you should focus on the calculation of F test, very important, you cannot skip that, which is there in multiple regression. Multicollinearity and heteroscedasticity is very important in regression. White noise concept, there's a 3 lines which talks about the independent Gaussian white noise, right? You need to just know that particular interpretation. Jark-Bera test, which is used for standard normal, whether the distribution is standard normal or not. Very important, know the formula very well. Antithetic versus control variate, you need to know what it actually means. You don't have to get too much deep into it. Just a high level understanding of what it means, that's going to be important. Similarly, pseudo random number generator, bootstrapping, what do you mean by that, why we use that versus the Monte Carlo simulation. Euclidean and Manhattan, now this is something that on the exam you can definitely expect to have a calculative kind of question on Euclidean distance and the Manhattan distance. Okay, it's not there in Schweizer, however. What you need to do is you need to refer the GARP end of chapter questions. Go to GARP end of chapter questions, and there you will see a calculation of Euclidean versus the Manhattan distance. Then you have confusion matrix. You're supposed to know the accuracy, precision, recall, and all the other things that we have. Statistically significance, Now, in the hypothesis, you may see certain questions like you may be given a p-value or certain things, and you are supposed to find out whether the hypothesis is statistically significant or not. And this is a favorite question. So you need to understand the interpretation of what it means and how do you identify whether a hypothesis is statistically significant or not. Omitted variable bias. This is the most important concept. Know it. Interquartile range, kurtosis, and skewness. For this, probably you need to may remember the formula for this, but very simple, right? Not complicated. Properties of ordinary least squares. This is something that you should know this thing. Okay, moving on to book number 3, which is the FMP. Let me just give you a broad overview about the number of chapters here is 20. But again, if you look at the major chapters, I would say that the first one is the mortgage-backed security. Expect somewhere about 2, 3, 4 questions on the exam from mortgage back. Why do I say that? Because this mortgage back is there in FRM part 2 as well. Similarly, if I talk about the hedge funds or the fund management, you would see the hedge funds there again in level 2. So these two are the most important topics in the entire FMP. I want you to just focus on this. That will be very, very helpful. Okay, so make sure that you are you give the due time and these two particular chapters. Then we have CCP, very, very crucial topic. The entire CCP is also there in part 2 entirely. It's everything is just the same in part 2. So you can imagine if something is there in level 1, is there in part 2, it must be important. Then you have these two chapters. So whatever that has been highlighted, these are something that you just cannot skip, right? And now if I just have to walk you through the specifics of these chapters. So let's suppose that in chapter number 1, banks, there's a conflict. You need to know that conflict of interest between investment banking and commercial banking, investment banking fee arrangements. Okay, similarly in chapter number 2, there's a break-even premium payment. There's a question, calculative question in GARP. Make sure that you solve that because it correctly adjusts for the discounting that is there. Okay, so make sure that you just refer to this question. Insurance ratio, you need to know the longevity versus the mortality risk. What do we mean by that? The differentiation. Similarly, for chapter number 3, there's computing net asset value, hedge fund returns for both investors and fund. So see, what I've done here is that you would actually see that I've created a list of the topic wise as well for all the specific chapters. Just download this PDF and go through it. That will really help you out. Okay, moving on to valuation and risk models. I'll just give you a broad overview. If you look at these chapters, that itself is something that you may expect somewhere about 8 to 10 questions on the exam, or maybe even 12 questions on the exam, just from these 4 chapters. Country risk, exact same thing is there in part 2. Very important. Stress testing has been a favorite topic of GARP, so you must pay attention to this thing. Operational risk, there's a separate book. Measuring credit risk, there's an entire separate book. But again, these are very important. Here also in VAR, if you are good with this particular thing, you have a good chance of getting good scores in the VRM book. Right. Talking about the specifics, you're supposed to know the ES calculation, VAR calculation. Now in the VAR as well, there's a VAR calculation for the delta normal VAR, which is a normal distribution. But what if the distribution is uniform? There's a separate calculation. What is the distribution is neither normal, neither uniform? It's another distribution. How do you calculate the VAR? That's another thing that we have in the GARP text. And of course, VAR for non-linear derivatives, which is specific to the options. Okay, you're supposed to know these 4 types. If you do not know anything about uniform or other distributions, it's absolutely okay. You can skip it out for now. Not invest your time in learning new things. But this is there in the GARP end of chapter questions. Okay. So for this non-linear derivative, specifically call or put options, how do you calculate that? Make sure that you know it. And this example can be found in GARP mock. If you are able to search on GARP mock, I think from chapter number 2, okay, there's going to be this question to it. That's very crucial. Similarly, moving on, you can just check it out, the chapter wise breakup, the important topics for all the 16 chapters that I've written right here. Make sure that you read through it, download this PDF, you'd be good to go for the exam. Okay, so this is just a general overview for the chapters which are important. You can segregate that and you can focus on those chapters and the specific topic wise as well, so that you do not miss out on those specific topics. So wherever you see the highest number of questions, maybe 2 to 4, 4 to 6, two questions, you need to pay special attention. And wherever you see one question, perhaps you can just, do it from crash course. You can just skim through it, right? So that is what the overall objective is. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.